Hello everyone, how's it going in Kerbal Space Program today with Bob Valentina and Bill Kerman, and I'm going to be teaching you completely how to dock things in space. If you're like me, it was very hard to do it, and I looked online and there weren't really that many good tutorials. So I got this wonderful spacecraft up in orbit here. It's on a very strange orbit. Now that's just to show you that it's not too hard to correct the orbit to be the correct inclination. And so I got this other spacecraft in orbit around Kerbin on a different orbit. Right here it is. See, that's it. So it's far different orbit than this one, and I'm gonna take it and dock it onto here and tell you what I'm doing every step of the way. So first, gonna get to that spacecraft, switch to it. Okay, so now I am in this other spacecraft. I am going to grab this one and set it as target. You'll want to do that right away. Now, a couple things to know would be how to use the RCS controls on a spacecraft and using SAS in space. Next, what you're going to want to do is turn on your SAS and go into prograde and let it do its magic and move into position. Okay, now my spacecraft is in prograde position, and I am going to go into the map. Now you're going to want to check the apoapsis and the periapsis of the other spacecraft, and you're going to want to match it. So I want to get somewhere between 185-ish and 184-ish, somewhere right between these. And I'm at 127 and 127, almost perfect orbit. So once you get to the apoapsis or near it, you're going to want to make sure you're in prograde and then slowly boost forward. If you have a larger spacecraft, you want to be careful as to how much thrust you put out. So again, I want to get to 185-ish. Now you're probably wondering what these things are. I'll get to that later. I'm going to time warp to the other side of the planet, in which I get to the apoapsis now. And make sure you're in prograde once you're here. If you have RCS, you can turn it on to help your spacecraft adjust quicker. Now that you're aimed correctly, you're going to want to thrust to get the periapsis up to 180 some. And there I am, up there. Okay. So now what you're going to want to do is find the descending node or the ascending node. So what you're going to want to do, you're going to have to put your spacecraft into normal or anti-normal, depending on if you want to go, depending on what direction you want to change. If you go into normal, it aims your spacecraft up. So then that will change the orbit so that this side will go up and this side will go down. And then if you do anti-normal, it'll make the orbit for here go down and that go up. So you're going to want, since I'm going to go to the ascending node since it's quicker on the other side of the planet. Now I'm going to want to go into anti-normal because I want to put this side down at the ascending node. Let me time warp over there. I'm sorry that it's kind of hard to see this spacecraft right now, but I'm getting close to the ascending node. I'm just letting it adjust. Now, I recommend for a lot of these parts that you just stay in the map mode unless you want to see what your adjustment or what your spacecraft's at. Now I'm going to just thrust to change the orbit. I'm just going full throttle, just see it's tilting. These shouldn't change too much. They might change a little bit. That's fine. You can change or readjust that later. It's not too big of a deal. So just keep going, keep going. And after, you might every once in a while want to turn off your thrust and get closer to the descending node, because the closer that you get to 0% percent, the better you're gonna, or the less difficulty you're gonna have. So I'm closer again. I'm just gonna throttle up again. I'm gonna just slow down a bit. Gonna catch up to it. So I was looking through the planet. My bad. Sorry. Ascending node moved up here. So I'm gonna just quickly time warp around. Don't know why that changed. I mean, just kind of a noob thing to do. Sorry. Okay. And now that we are getting closer, get out of time warp. See, it's only 2.3% or 2.3 degrees now. So I'm at anti-normal, and I'm gonna thrust a bit more to change that. And you just saw it there. Just switch. Now this is the descending node. If you want, you can just kind of thrust the other way again, and it'll help fix the degrees on it to be closer to 0. I'm using RCS to just slowly decelerate. And there. Now once they get kind of the other side, see it's at 0.0%. You're close enough to that it doesn't much matter what it is anymore. If you get to like 0.0, you're pretty much set. So I had this booster on the back of the spacecraft in which I was using to help get myself into those orbits. And now that its fuel is getting low, I'm going to send it back into Earth because I don't want the debris up here with me. So I'm just going to decouple that and then aim this into retrograde and begin my burn. And I'm just going to get this into an orbit so that it crashes into the Earth. See, so at some point it's just going to crash. That's good with me. Going to switch back to my main spacecraft now. Now I'm just going to pop this antenna out. You don't have to do that. I'm just doing that to show you what this little spacecraft looks like. The next part is a little bit more complicated to explain. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get your intersection down to being very small. Because right now, since we're in the same orbit as the other spacecraft, it's going to be a little bit harder to get them closer together without time warping 1,000 years. So I'm just going to get up to my periapsis here, and I'm going to use my RCS and accelerate just a little bit to get my orbit on that side to be a little bit bigger. So now I've made my apoapsis a little bit bigger now, and I am going to time warp just one orbit around. Now the key to having a bigger orbit on one side is that it allows your spacecraft to catch up essentially or slow down to this one. So you'll slowly see it's moving there because I'm taking more time to get around this because I'm orbiting slower than this. So it is catching up to me every time that I do a circle. Now if the spacecraft you're trying to dock to is a little bit in front of you, you could instead throw it into retrograde and make your orbit on the other side a bit smaller, so then you essentially catch up to that spacecraft. Now if you wanted to make this process go a little bit quicker, instead of orbiting 100 times, you could just at periapsis just change your orbit. So in my case, I would make mine bigger so that this catches up quicker and I have to do less orbits. But for the sake of teaching and the simplicity of it, I'm just going to keep it in this orbit. Now, if you're flying a probe like this one, I recommend one of two things. Either one, have plenty of batteries on your spacecraft, otherwise over time it'll become depowered and you can't control it. Or put a simple solar panel or something that'll get you some power on it, because then you won't run out of battery. Just a lot easier to do that. So now as you can see, that spacecraft is getting closer to mine. And now it's going to jump a little bit. But next time, this will be me. And that will be the target. So now I want to slow down my spacecraft. So I'm going to put it into retrograde. And use the RCS to get these as close as I can. Now you're going to want to tap it every once in a while. See, that's very, very close. So you're going to want to get it down near at least 5 kilometers or so, and try not to have your relative speed be too much bigger, because you're going to have to slow down when we orbit and get close to it. Okay, so now that we're getting closer, what you're going to want to do is hop into this view. See, there it is right there. Now you're going to want to click this right here to get into target, activate your RCS, and burn in retrograde. And see, it'll go down. You'll want to get that to 0 meters a second. Now you see is right there. There we go. So what you're going to want to do now is you're going to want to point towards the target by clicking target. And then you're going to want to burn towards it. Now I recommend not going too high, because I mean, you're in the orbit, you can always speed warp towards it, but it's always easier to have less time to burn to stop it. So once you aim towards it and burn towards it, you're going to want to aim retrograde towards the target. Just try and get closer that you can. And now I'm getting pretty close, so I'm going to try to decelerate now a bit. So now this is taking my relative speed towards that to be less. Now you can see we're getting pretty close. You can see it. It's right there. I'm going to simply time warp to get over into the sun side, because you're going to want light for the next part. So now that we have our wonderful, wonderful sun peeking out from around Kerbin, you're going to want to aim towards the target again. And we're pretty close, so this isn't going to take too much. Activate your RCS and just kind of get a little bit closer. And I'm just going to slow down a little bit because I'm closer to it now. Now what you're going to want to do next is find the docking port on top and set as target. So now instead of the whole spacecraft, it sets that as your target. And you're going to want to click your docking port and click control from here. So now see, I clicked for that to be aimed towards the target, so it's going to aim itself directly towards that target. Now I'm going to hop into the other spacecraft by clicking my bracket key. Let's find it. There we go. There it is right there. And now I'm going to click on that docking port, set as the target, and this as control from here. And I'm going to aim it at the target. So now we're lined up. All we have to do now, I'm going to hop into the other spacecraft again, is to just fly this with RCS and just go straight towards it. Now I'm going to pull these in because the other spacecraft has solar panels on it and I don't want them to hit. And as we get closer, you want to slow down again. Now aim towards the target again. Now you see that one kind of adjusted too. Now I'm going to just keep going in and maybe slow down a little bit. And at this point, you can just let it do the rest as it magnifies itself to it. And there you go. Now you have docked a spacecraft. Now, since I see these solar panels are clear, I'm just going to pop them right back out. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it taught you very well how to dock spacecraft in Kerbal Space Program. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, and I will answer them personally. For more how-tos, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I also do Minecraft videos besides Kerbal Space Program, so maybe check those out, and I will see you next time. Later.